Great, awesome. Biti, Mugore, Rebecca, thank you for coming. Karibuni sana. All right, so Ewagata, you can come back, then we can do the introduction and get going. So good evening. Karibuni sana as we get started with part 3, the third installment of these conversations that we are having on evolution of sex and especially its effect on parenting. And well, we are totally hoping that much as we shall give you shock therapy today, it will be shock therapy and you don't leave here with panic attacks. Feel free to ask questions as usual, on the chat, and let's interact with each other. And yeah, we shall enjoy learning from one another, by the way. So today with me is Mark Ndwati, who's going to be taking us through the session. He's going to be our main presenter today. That's Mark. And then we have Ewagata. We'll also, last week, he left people in another state over there. I don't even know, wondering whether monogamy is something we should all sign up for or, what. But yes, Ewagata Karibu Sana. He's a pastor at Papa Center, Rock Ministries, and also runs YHub Networks. And then Mark runs the Plug Youth, which is an awesome group about mentoring youth. So we all are passionate about working with young people. I'm with Retro Group, and we're passionate about working with young people and doing what it takes to get parents and adults connected with the younger generation, and also the younger generation understanding where adults are coming from when we are giving them all help. And so Karibuni Sana, I'm looking forward to the conversations we'll have today. Now, those of you who are here early, get something to write on, because I'll be giving you an exercise that you will need to sort of like sketch where, what is it called, your answers, or sketch what it is I'm going to be describing. It's going to help us understand where our kids are coming from. So just grab something to write on. We'll just give you a minute or two to do that while a few other people are joining, and then, yeah, we get going. So one of the things I would advise is that if you're going to write this down, please make sure you're not with your children, because you don't want them basically seeing or reading up some of the things that you may answer. If you know you're not in a private space, then don't write some of these things down. Basically think them through in your head. It will help us understand where Mark is taking us from here. So this is just a bit of, what is it called, anesthetizing the wound, anesthetizing the area before we dig into it. So grab a pen and paper and we can get going. So what we're going to be doing is taking a journey into our past, a bit different from the first session that we did, because what I want us to draw out today is some of the choices. It's a map of the choices that we made along the way. All right, so that's generally what we're going to be looking at. And I want you to start from the year you were born. I don't think the day is absolutely necessary, but think about the year you were born. And we are going to draw a sort of map that has lines coming from the place you were born up until, it's called a life choice map. I'm not sure that it's clear, but for those of you who are here right now, you can just grab a peep at it, because the rest will basically miss the original instructions. So we're just doing numbers and lines, just basically some numbers and lines. So starting somewhere on the top left side of your paper, just write the year you were born. Just write the year you were born. And then draw a line, just a short line, to the next time that you remember having to make a choice. And for the sake of our conversation, let's keep it a sexual choice, meaning the first time you are exposed to something sexual, whether pornography or your first crush, it really just depends on what your history is like. Indicate with a small line the first time at the age. So a small line, then your age and the choices you had. So for instance, for me, there's the year that I was born. When I was about 9 years old, I was exposed to pornography by being given a magazine by my younger sister, which a Playboy magazine. And so I would put 9 as the next age after when I was born. And then I had an option to read a porn magazine, or, continue with my studies, I guess, at that 9 years old. Then now from there, you pick the choice that you made and follow it through to the next choice that you had to make. So it could be when you are 14. We're not going to do a very long one. It could be to when you are 14. What was the next choice you made as far as your sexuality is concerned? If you have any query, if you have not understood any of that, let me know. All right. So continue indicating it that way, indicating all the paths that you may have taken and the paths that you did not take, and mark the ages. Joining high school, did you have a choice? Just before you joined high school, you had choices about the subjects to take. Indicate if that was a choice. When you got into high school, you had choices that you made. Indicate the choices. Right? So what we are doing is starting from when we were born. It's some sort of timeline, yes. We are starting from when you were born, then indicating the first time that you had a sexual choice to make, meaning exposure or, crush. It depends on what your life was like. All of us have walked this journey differently. Then you get into like primary school, and then there's things that are happening in primary school. Maybe you were taught about sex in Sunday school. Maybe you were taught about it at home, wherever it may be. Maybe when you got a younger sibling, your mother decided to tell you how babies are made, whatever it might be. Draw a timeline or map of how that looked like for you. When you got into high school, any choices that you had to make, then you're picking the line from the choice that you made and where it led you. At every juncture, there's a choice that you made and where it led you. Why I brought up the subjects is that in case you picked up sciences and eventually ended up going to study medicine, and then you married a colleague, you see where that will come across. Somewhere along the line, your romance started in the labs, or when you are going through whatever you are going through when learning. So those are the things I want you to look out for. So key ages are just before you became a teenager, when you were a teen, at the beginning of teen years, 13, 14, look at yourself around 16. That's another place where crisis really hits. Then also look at yourself at 18. What are some of the choices? Some of us went to universities in different places. Once we went to those universities, what did we encounter there? If you were fresh meat, fresh fish, and everybody was hitting on you as a first year, what did you do? How many people did you allow to touch you if you're a woman? How many chicks did you touch if you were a guy? How far did you go? How far was too far? Indicate those things either in your mind or on the piece of paper, just so that you can have a view of the journey you have walked. And we shall do a comparison with the journey our children are walking. So around 18, what were you up to? Around 22, just when you're in campus or just finishing campus, what were you up to? When you got your first job, or did you just continue straight into master's? Did you take a break in between? What was that looking like? Somewhere along the way, indicate your breakups. Like if you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend and broke up with them, just indicate it somewhere, the age you were, let's just look at all the experiences we may have had. If you traveled to further your career or to further your education, indicate that. Indicate the people you interacted with. Indicate what you are doing for fun, because we're just looking at what was life like. For those who are married, at what age did you get married? You know, so indicate that you got married, you know, and you had choices. You had a choice actually not to get married, but you made the choice to marry. Some of us are living with regret. Some of us are living with total excitement based on the choices that we made around there. So just indicate, you know, like what you did, you know, staying single or getting married. Now, when you chose to get married, did you have kids immediately or did you wait a little bit? Because then if you're indicating your ages, there'll be the age at which you got your first child. And just so that you have an idea of what you're working with, from the date you had your first child, indicate how old you are now and how old they are now. You're just your first child. For those who have children. So you indicate your age now, and your child's age now. In 2021. All right. So now when Mark is taking us through that particular spectrum, you will be able to see for yourself the challenges that you may have faced, the challenges your child, if your child was to draw the same thing, if a younger person was to draw the same thing, what would they be saying about some of these areas and choices? So Mark, go ahead and take us now to our child's timeline through this.
I've not unmuted. Hey everyone. Thank you for the early birds who've joined in early. So basically, I wanted to kind of start us off with information basically that we can identify with and we can get to know where we are at, where our children are at, so that we kind of have a landing space in terms of this today's conversation. So basically, if your child was born between 1996 to 2005, they would be considered Generation Z, or Gen Z. So Gen Z is the newest and the youngest generation of people who, I think the oldest is 24. So they're 24 and below. So they're the youngest people we have around. Their parents are considered to be Generation X. So Gen X came after the baby bloomers. And they are just before the millennials. What happens is that for the millennials, their parents were the boomers, and now Generation X are the parents of the Gen Z who we are facing right now. A unique thing about Gen Z is that they were born when social media had already happened or was just happening. So I remember for myself, I think when I started getting messages, we were on High Five. I don't know how many people remember High Five and MySpace.com. We were on that platform. So Facebook came along and we were like, okay, what weird thing is this that everyone wants us to be? So I used to get a lot of emails actually about Facebook, and I was very skeptical. In fact, I never used to give out my information on social media. So my first email on Google was called fansling@gmail, which is operational till today. So I was paranoid. I was like, I wanted to lie about my identity because I have this weird sense that information about me is being harvested and eventually it will be used against me. I don't know why I used to have that feeling, but it has come to be true eventually. Because that's the business that social media people are in today. So when they were just being born, so when they are coming into knowing themselves, social media is also coming of age. It is becoming the biggest $1 million industry, and it's making Google and Facebook and everyone rich. So when we are excited about it. Our kids are also, they were excited about it, and they're getting onto it at the same time. The effect of it is that they never knew a life without gadgets. At least we knew a life without gadgets, and we kind of had some off and on button in our head where we were eased into it. So you could, there was times you used the phone, there's a time that there was no WhatsApp, so you just used to text. Whenever the person will see the text, they will text back, unless you call them and ask them, have you seen my SMS? But now it's instant. It's real time, and these kids have been experiencing a real time conversation with their friends and with the world, basically, at the same time. So, like, if you look at Facebook's mission, is to connect the world. They are, and I say a quote and unquote because the underlying fact is that they're doing business, but the thing that they're giving us is that they want us to be connected. They want to see a world that is connected. So you can imagine, for them, it is exciting to be connected with people all the time. So their friendships are not our friendships where we would log off and meet each other. Till today, we kind of have to, even if you're in lockdown, you need to meet this person and have coffee with them or tea or something with them to enjoy company. For them, having followers online is like having friends. It's like the real deal. It's a shot of what do you call it? Dopamine. Like, it's a shot of a high. If I woke up today and I found like I had 500 more followers. For me, my generation is the millennials. My Facebook has gotten to almost like 5,000, and I'm already feeling like this is too much for me. For them, they want more. Every day they wake up with a pursuit of, this is the real life I know. So the real life is not with people, it is online. So this door is already open. And then the other issue is that the movies they watch, if you've ever sat down and watched a teen movie, I don't know if you guys nowadays actually watch teen movies. I don't know if you're interested in watching what your kids are watching, or anything that has a teen characters. Like, teenagers are the ones who are leading the story.
I'd read it.
Or yes, and read it. You will find that being gay is in everything. Like, being LGBTQ is normal. It's written in every script. It is part and parcel of life. So put that together with the social media influence that they've had, and access to, oh yeah, I had forgotten, access to Wi-Fi. The first time I encountered Wi-Fi, I thought that was the most innovative thing ever. Facebook is creating Wi-Fi that will be in the clouds there, that we can, it's already actually available, that if you buy bundles through Facebook, you can access Wi-Fi in the air. And I remember the time that they had come to Kenya, they tested it. I went to around some place where there was a hotspot, and I was actually able to buy bundles through M-Pesas or Facebook, and actually access to Wi-Fi on the road. Like, that's the level it has gotten to. So you can imagine, if a child has a phone right now, they will probably access pornography. And if they've accessed pornography, it means they've already been exposed to hardcore porn. Not even soft porn is already readily available, that it is everywhere. It is imprinted everywhere, on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere. Like, half-naked people are, in fact, even themselves, people are offering themselves as part of soft porn. But once you access hardcore porn, you're exposed to any manner of, what do you call it? Any type of thing that is out there, any experience. So it can be gay, it can be lesbian, it it can be animals, it can be anything. And what happens is that with this information that is coming in, if it meets a person who is looking for information, basically they're at a place where they're questioning themselves, or they're trying to understand who they are, basically. And today we're focusing on maybe sexual identity. And why sexual identity is because their generation and sexual identity is a big thing. It is how they socialize. It's important to get it right. I can't even know what to identify it during. I think for us during our time was fashion. So you were passionate about how you dress and what brand. So if you had Adidas on, if you had the Nike on, you are a Nike person. If you were Skechers, you are a Skechers person. If you identified with a certain brand, even though you might not have bought something new, you had gotten it from Gikomba, but it was what you got. In fact, I met a kid who had a shoe with a brand that I didn't know. It's like, I think I'm a Malisa class 8. And I was asking the kid, how do you survive with a brand that is fake? During our time, you would be caught dead having a knockoff. Like if you had a knockoff, you'd rather hide it and ensure that people don't see it. You only wear it when people are not around. But if you're going out, if you're going out to a public space, hata iruvai slippers. Ilikuwa ukuje na a fake Nike. Ilikuwa itwa panga. Yeah, so for them, sexual identity is almost getting to that place where you have to get it right. The reason being is that there's pressure from media, there's pressure from social media to identify yourself as something. So with LGBTQ, I wanted to share a document that we can look at to see some of the definitions that are laid there. It's actually a website. It's not a document. It's a website. I mean, if you guys can look at it. So it shows the progression from LGBT, which we knew, and then how it has progressed to what it is today. So LGBT, we know, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. Those are the most common terms we've grown up with and we've known. So I won't spend a lot of time there. What I want to go to is LGBTQIA. So Q represents queer. Queer is often an umbrella referring to anyone who is not straight and not cisgender. Cisgender, cisgender people are people who as gender and identity expression matches the sex that they were assigned at birth. Historically, the term queer was used as a slur against LGBTQ, but in recent years, they have reclaimed it and are using it now. Queer is also often used as a broad rejection of labels. So basically, if you,
So you're saying that if I don't want to be labeled, I can just say I'm queer?
Yes. Okay. So most gay people, or most people who are LGBT will just say I'm queer.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not normal. I'm not like you guys. I'm just queer. The other one is Q can also represent questioning. So you're in a space where you are not so sure about your sexual identity. You seem to be odd. If you're a girl, you're a tomboy, you like playing with boys. Girls are giving you a hard time in terms of you have a nice body. If you could only wear a dress, do you know how many boys you'd attract? That type of thing. And it's slowly building into you, and you're questioning, why am I the way I am? Why am I so boyish? Why am I? And slowly you're questioning, and you're secretly also experimenting with who you are. So you're finding yourself in spaces where you you kind of are interested in girls, but not in a way a girl would be interested in girls, because you're because they're not like you. You're different. So you're inquisitive. You're also, you want to understand why am I not like them?
Yeah.
And in that, it can easily grow into attraction. Basically, you can just find that you see a pretty girl and you're like, this girl is very pretty, and you're very interested to know their world and how they feel because they are pretty, and that kind of a thing. So you remain at that questioning place until you can identify yourself with something. And when you encounter a movie, music, or this whole society of where there are people who are like you and they identify themselves like this, then you get yourself into that space. So there's intersex. Intersex is basically people who have ambiguous genitalia, or they grow when they were younger. They might have female or male, and then slowly something else grows into being. So they actually are different from transgender, because transgender are people who are male who identify female, or they are female who identify male. So they want to move to that other sexual orientation. They want to change themselves to the other side. These ones is they find themselves having either like balancing in between. They are intersex. They are both, and physically it might have, but their sexual orientation, however often, is not linked to it.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's intersexual. So asexual is the people who identify themselves from, they can only get attracted to someone if they have a romantic relationship with them. If they don't, then and it can cut across the board. It can be a girl and a girl, or a boy and a boy, and then they find like they are becoming good friends, they're best friends, and then it can grow into something like that. A can also be ally. So basically, ally are people who they are not gay per se, but they support. They're like, we have to fight for gay rights. Like they all gay rights matter. Gay lives matter type of situation. So there are people who support that agenda. So I think I'll leave it at that, because it continues to pansexual and demisexual, which we might not get into today, but I just wanted for us to understand. The one that is most popular is the LGBTQIA. So basically, going back to the place where our kids are at a place where they live in a different world. First of all, they are more aware than any other generation. They are for example, if you ask them right now, if I ask you guys right now, do you know someone who's gay? Do you have a friend that's gay? Most probably your answer will be not. You do not have a friend who is gay. The second question would be, do you know someone who is gay? You'd be like, yes, I know someone who's gay. But me, either I was with them in high school, that guy at my place of work, I suspect he might be gay, but you're not certain about it.
I don't know. When we were growing up,
yes,
we had this theory. I mean, as a girl, we had this theory that a gay guy is a girl's best friend. Because you see, he was not going to hit on you or anything like that. You knew that you were safe with him. And so based on some of the conversations we had then, we actually encouraged experimentation with sexuality.
Yeah.
Like personally, I was quite comfortable around it because in my mind, I knew that I'm safer around a gay guy than a heterosexual guy.
Yeah.
And so accepting them was easy. So there's a question I want to ask even on the group, basically, would you consider yourself an ally? Now that you have told us what an ally is,
okay.
Are we, does that then mean that whether we like it or not, you are being told that you belong in LGBTQIA? Because I'm asking this question because I had this conversation with some young girls, and of course we got into sexuality, and some of them were saying they see children in their future but they can't see a guy. So when you ask them how are you getting the children, it's not about adoption. It's it's okay to get a sperm donor.
Yeah.
And the sperm can come ready-made from this person, so have sex with anyone and just get the kid. Just make sure the genetic composition looks fine. You need to actually, you can't just be having four babies. But at the end of the day, they asked me, so am I an ally or am I homophobic? And so my question to all of us would be, knowing what we have been given as this what's called description, if you are faced by a young person and they asked you, are you homophobic or are you an ally? What would you choose?
Interestingly, I don't know if I've asked myself that question. I'm also asking myself that question right now.
Yeah, what would you?
Am I homophobic or am I
an ally?
Because
ally. That is actually the real question that our kids are asking. That's what they're asking us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe as we're answering that question, I think the thing to someone has said, what? I think the thing also to ask yourself is, are you in touch with the reality of that for them, they actually just don't know that there's someone who's gay. They just don't know that they have a friend who's gay.
Yeah.
They actually have been hit on by their friend who's gay.
Yes.
Their friend who's gay.
Yeah.
Are you understanding?
They have.
So their reality is, it's not about whether I will encounter it or am I being pressured to get there. Is that I'm already experiencing being hit on by girls if I'm a girl, being hit on by boys if I'm a boy. I have an experience. I don't know if I've ever told you about this experience. And this is like from church. We are coming out of church.
Yeah.
And there's this guy who, we're at the conference. Tume hang out the day. Tumeenda kuchukua matatu pamoja. So when he's saying goodbye to me, he literally spanks me and leaves.
Wow.
So I'm left at the stage, frozen.
Yeah.
Wondering, did what happened just happen in public?
Yeah.
So by the time it hit me, it's actually happened. And now my anger builds, like I need to smack this person, kill them or something like that. They were far gone. And I went home wondering, like what was going through this person's mind. Like they looked at me and they were like interested in me. And they were actually talking to me because they were attracted to me. And at this whole time, I didn't say this. So I can imagine for myself, that was like a one-time experience.
Yeah.
For them, it's almost like a weekly experience.
Yeah.
The fact that they're on social media and they're posting and they are putting on their best foot forward for people to see, for people to comment, for they're interacting on social media, they're already getting that pressure for to the extent that if you're a girl and you're liking a girl's picture, you have to indicate that you're not gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to put that out there so that as we are thinking about the question of, are we on the homophobic side? Are we on the ally side? Or is there a third place where we actually don't even know where we are with this information?
Yeah.
In regards to, is your child at home right now? Where are they? Where are they really? If you ask these questions, what would you find out about their reality?
Yeah.
And at that point, would you freak out and go to the default for we are binding demons today? We are calling Pastor Shalom to this house. Pastor Ewaga takuja na anointing oil. Tukemee pepo hapa. Or do you have enough information to maybe go a little bit further and get to know, okay, at what stage are you at? Are you active? Are you practicing? Are you thinking about it? Is it a season you're going through? That type of situation.
Yeah. So there's people who are commenting, and I mean, if you can look at some of the answers in the comments.
Okay. So someone says, I don't support the lifestyle, but I don't reject LGBTQ community. Kuna mtu ako secret phobic.
You see, that's the thing. That's what, you know, I want us to look at this. You see, for us, if you're grown up and you're okay with where you're at, this may not matter. But we are bringing up kids who, if you have brought them up a certain way and they have certain values that they believe in and they stand on, this is the real pressure they're getting. They're being told you have no choice, you have to choose one. Because when you say you're neither here nor there, then it means you're secretly phobic, but you're afraid of saying it.
Yeah.
All right. And then now you're then told. Sorry?
I'm getting this idea for, maybe you need to clear up the ally part also. The ally is not saying that you support the notion of, as a Christian, that being gay is okay. Necessarily. What it means is that you see this community as human beings. You kind of are, what do you call it? Sympathetic. You sympathize with their situation.
Yeah.
You understand that for you to get there, maybe you're abused or something happened to you. Like you're just not there by default. So being an ally is you've crossed from just spewing scripture or saying, hey, you know what you're doing is a sin. Like you've moved from there and you've grown to a place where you want to listen, you want to know their story. You're actually concerned about how we treat LGBT community in terms of the places where they're beaten up or they're insulted or they grow up with trauma because of just being different in terms of, and they don't even know they're different. Maybe they're a boy and they talk like a girl and they get to be abused since they were a child. And you're like, that's
basically because of a hormonal issue. Yeah.
Imbalance. And you're there feeling like, I really need to protect such kids from getting certain type of, so you don't condone the behavior, but you have empathy, sympathy, you kind of have gone a step ahead, to do something about it, basically. Yeah.
And you see, I feel as though the fact that we have not become very, very clear about, you know, we are running after definitions given by other people instead of picking, because this whole thing is about labels. This whole thing is about, that's why I called it about the fight for identity. Because our kids are looking for identity. Every young person is looking for identity. We are looking for some form of identity, but they struggle more in their teen years than later, right? And if then somebody comes and tells you this is who you are because you behave like this or talk like this, then if we cannot be clear as the adults, we can't expect our kids to be able to work it out, which is why I threw that question out there. If you yourself are not clear, what chance does your 16-year-old have of defending themselves against the onslaught of labels and demands? Because every time they're getting to the point of make a choice. If we look back at those choice maps that we were drawing, every time you're faced with a choice, unfortunately, if the loudest voice says you have one of two choices, at that point, you can't think that you have a third one. So when you're being told you're either an ally or you're homophobic, you're so almost like threatened by that title or label that you'll be given, that you don't want to think through, what does it mean? Why do I have to be in this label? So that by the time you're saying you're neutral, you know, you're in the middle, and this is why you are in the middle, you can be confident in your reasoning as to why you're in the middle. I want to look at a comment here because I think, Mark, it will also influence what you're saying about how our kids end up there. Somebody's saying, honestly, is it a fact that society might be hypocritical in the sense that ladies are actually lesbians subliminally, since ladies can easily call each other babe, honey, among other words, plus can just comfortably sleep together, same bed, while holding each other without a problem. But if or when you see a dude doing all this with another dude, it looks weird, or rather, people view it weirdly. Here's the thing about this. There was once upon a time, you know, like how we would tell a story and say, once upon a time, not everything was sexual. Once upon a time, not everything was sexual, right? And so that once
is from a guy.
It's from a guy.
I understand.
And you see, once upon a time, everything was not sexual. Right now, I'm sorry, I wouldn't just have my daughter sleeping with females just like that. You know, it's valid for me to fear that something may happen. But I grew up with my aunties. I grew up with my aunties coming into my bed, and not coming into my bed secretly. I was the option that they had when it came to them sleeping over. And we never ever looked at it sexually. But it is back to where you're telling us we have gotten to. We did not have the same exposure that our kids have. We did not have the same exposure that they have right now. And because we grew up without that exposure, we are unable to understand that what is going on right now is influenced by the exposure that even we are having as grown-ups.
Yeah, I think what you're saying has so much weight on it because we are sexualized by mostly entertainment that we watch, and information that we get from entertainment. And for us, I didn't know, like basically I had no clue until I was in high school, and I'd noticed there are boys who are behaving weirdly, and they don't use the loose that we use, and they spend a lot of time together. So we were like, what are you guys doing? Like, what's going on here? And when we realized, we were like, oh, so my conclusion in my head was like, these guys were born like that. You know, so you don't have any information to go by. You're like, perhaps they were born that way. The other one was what you said was about like it would be normal for even for guys, like if you had visitors over and there was not enough sleeping room, 2-3 boys would bundle into one bed and would sleep. Even in parties, like people would just sleep wherever, on a couch, whatever, near to, like there was no that thought for there can be something sexual here. Until the information is given to you, then you're like, okay. until you experience something, is then you're like, hey, I need to be more careful about it. I think the shocker for me in this generation is it happened in church, like in the terms of, we had a visitor kid come through to church, and little did I know, everyone knew he was gay. Me, I didn't know.
Yeah.
So as I'm getting to know about it, I am finding out actually there's something that is called being a pretty boy.
Pretty boy.
Yes, which I was categorized also under. Like I was told, if I was their generation, I'd be under that category. So to me, that pretty boys are the ones who attract other boys.
Yeah.
Like you're in the place where you can attract a female or a male. And then from the girl side, it's called a stud. A stud can attract both a female and a male. Like you balance out the both worlds. But you see, where did this information come from? Who came up with this definition? So unless this information is in your head and you know about it, you can't really go off on it. So that's the difference between our context and their context. But however, as the same thing is there, it didn't mean that homosexuality was not there.
It has been from forever.
Yes. In fact, when you look at the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, what I don't think people understand why God had to do what he did in that space is because the Bible said when the angels had come to visit Abraham, it says, actually, let me just, if I can share it so that you see, like it's a whole society problem in terms of, so from verse 4, it says, before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, where are the young men you came tonight? Bring them so that we can have sex with them. So imagine a whole group of society. Kila mtu kwa hii society is does it make sense? Every husband, every man, everyone.
Yeah.
For God to destroy somewhere ati anapigana moto is because, so historically it has been there. Someone is talking about our African context. And interestingly, as I've read, it was a taboo for sex even to have a conversation. But still, even with all these things, homosexuality was under the radar, like ilikuwa undercurrent.
Yeah.
Yes. So the difference with this generation is that it is out in the open. We are actually proud of it. We want to be identified in this way. And if you actually get it wrong, I have an issue with you. Yes.
So what does a parent do in this day and age? So here you are, and I'm looking at, okay, so your son is like 7, 8 years old now, right?
Yeah.
What would you do if he came and told you he's gay 10 years from now?
Apart from just not show my panic attack.
Because, you know, my desire for these conversations is to actually have a conversation about what I will not be able to Google.
Yeah.
What would you do? What would that's the same question I have to ask myself. Yeah.
So basically, I think the first thing is to be inquisitive, to get to know how far how far have you gone on this journey for you identify yourself in a different sexual orientation. it's the most difficult thing to do because apart from the panic attack you will be experiencing and the anxiety you're trying to control, what I've realized is that love wins more than any other thing. Like love wins the day in terms of when this person is coming to tell you this is who I am, they are fearful. They are fearing the consequences. They are just hoping for the best, but they have been convinced to come out.
Yeah.
And they're coming out.
Okay.
So I think the first thing is not to react or overreact, like to find a way to cool yourself or to just manage the situation. And then from there, probably begin a journey of discovery, not to correct, not to immediately, because we know we are Christians and the way we were raised, like there's a default setting.
Yeah.
For either we call Pastor Yawagata na anointing oil ama nitakugonga mpaka urudi straight. Unajua ile
like the 7-year-old I was talking about.
Yeah.
You know, who was beaten just for asking the questions.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, so how can we equip our kids to be able to, of course, I mean, because
yeah,
you are with that child, are you able to notice? Because I'm looking and thinking, I'm a parent and wondering, am I able to notice when my child is transitioning? Towards the end of the session, I'll share a document like with those online. I'll share a document about different children sharing their experiences. They're now above 18, of course, because ethically you wouldn't expose an under 18. But I'm going to share a document that shows how different children got to that point. But for the sake of our conversation here, is there any way of a parent recognizing or understanding or seeing or noticing, and maybe Ewagata can help us with this one because he's worked with young people. Is there any way of actually figuring out, oops, my daughter is headed the wrong direction, or my son is actually headed, and I'm putting wrong in quotes because it is not considered wrong today. We need to understand that they are viewing it differently from how we are doing it. So Ewagata, what has been your experience?
Thank you. I think this is an interesting conversation. I should have jumped in like 20 minutes ago to be able to create a context. But with the question that you've asked, what is my experience? It begins with just an acknowledgement. I think as parents, we want to assume the best. So even when all the signals and signs are pointing in a certain direction and we sense there's something amiss, either this boy of ours is acting girly or this girl is acting like a tomboy. And you know, that's the word that we used to use many years ago, tomboy.
Yeah. I'm still called that sometimes.
Apparently, it's called what now? What's the stud? And there?
That's what Mark is telling us.
It's the same thing.
Yeah,
I think
you'd be a stud right now.
Yeah. The reality is, one of the big things that has happened, and I want us to look at it from a sense in which there are things that we have a mental block to as the generation X and maybe a few generation Ys that this generation Z does not have. So when they notice something, they just, accept and say, let me hear what your thoughts are. Generation X is like, dude, you are straight and you will be straight. There's no debate about it. And so for most purposes, we will not even explore the thought that there is something amiss. There is something changing with this little child of mine, or they have an interest in boys that is weird for a boy. And rather than address it, we just wish it away. The same way, when we know our kids are into porn, we still try to just assume that they're just studying hard. Yeah. All the
Evagata,
yeah.
there's this scenario that we were presented with, huh?
Mm.
Like, you know, the way would be safe with your daughter is with another friend of hers who's a girl in the room studying.
Mm.
So we are okay.
Yeah, and I like
Not
what you
knowing
just
that
said. Yeah.
in this generation that something could be happening.
Yes, a boys' boarding school is no longer sexually asymptomatic.
I think the idea is actually then to guide parents on how to openly discuss this LGBTQ issue with their children.
Yes, there's the part of guiding the parents on this conversation. I think the first thing is just to be aware that your kids are not hearing what you heard, seeing what you saw, experiencing what you experienced. They are in the deep end of where you are seated as a teenager. Looking at that map that we drew, all those things that we drew there, you know, whether it was our first love experience, whether it was our first porn experience, whether it was our first crush, whether it was our, you know, our first touching of lips, all those things are multiplied 10x for these kids.
Yeah.
Now, I think we need to own up to the fact that we have messed it up for our kids. Tukubali tuishe.
Well, I was accused of that directly by my son. I mean, he's 25 and he did not spare me. He said, your generation has messed up our generation.
It's the truth. We've messed it up.
Yeah.
We should not have allowed the sexualization of a whole generation. We should not have allowed the exposure of a whole generation, but because it came with what we call civilization, it's more civilized to be online. It's more civilized to have exposure of this level. And I tell people, you know, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it's best personified in the internet.
Explain further.
The internet is the perfect model of the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. On the internet, you can study up to your PhD. On the internet, you can be able to research about what are the remedies for COVID, what are the remedies for, you know, there's Google Doc. I mean, Google Medicine. You can Google any symptoms and find, you know, some very verified websites that give you medical reports on what you're going through, and very accurate. But the same internet will take you into porn. It will take you into chat rooms that are just so terrible. It is the same internet that will take you into stalkers, pedophiles, name it. So it has both good and evil in equal measure. It just depends on which button you click and what you search. And once you search it, it brings you all the rest of the petrol heads that you are not even aware existed. So for me, that personifies the tree of knowledge and of good and evil. And then it has removed the limits. There's nothing like PG. You know, we stop lying to ourselves that all movies are PG-16, PG-14, PG-12, or adult only. Nothing, because the same movies are coming out, but the internet has no limits, and they have intentionally refused to limit the internet. Why? Because it is money.
It makes money.
In fact, it's the highest earner of www. The World Wide Web will crash if they remove pornography out of it. It will basically drop its profits by like 60-70%. And so we need to apologize to our children that we have actually sexualized them, we have exposed them, we have thrown them under the bus. Now the only thing we are trying to tell them is, my child, the words of Proverbs, pay attention to my words. Do not let them depart from your heart. They are life to those who find them and health to a man's whole body. But on the other side, we are like, my son, don't follow my ways. You know, don't expose yourself to what I've exposed you to. How do we fail to expose them to what we have exposed them? Do they fail to get into what we have exposed them to? And so now what we can only do is begin to remedy. because already they are sexualized. Everything they see has a sexual connotation. That is why you cannot allow a girl into your daughter's room for a sleepover, or a boy to your son's room, because something sexual will happen. We have civilized them. We have civilized sin for them. And we've made sin. That is why we are arguing, we are struggling with the thing of LGBTQ. Are we
allies?
Allies?
Are we?
or what is the other word? What's the other word? Allies or
homophobic.
Homophobic.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be either.
Exactly.
And I know somebody said that. I don't have to be either. It's the same stance I take with sin. It is wrong, but I don't take the sinner and say, you are going to perish. I tell him, there is hope for you. And so for me, it's to extend hope, because if I have a friend of mine who is a player and I know I'm a Patia Mamanzi ball left, right, center, the same way I look at him and say, boss, Suta Jumiza, one of these days, somebody will kill you because you've taken their wife or something like that. Please change your ways or straighten out. I have the same measure of thought with whether it's gay, it's transgender, it is queer, whatever. It's the same thing of listen. Because, sometimes when people talk about these things, you feel like the heterosexual guys don't struggle. As we're just okay, we just sit there and a girl passes and we feel nothing. No, we do. But every day we beat up our bodies, we discipline ourselves. And so I'm not telling this guy to do what I am not doing. I'm not telling them to control themselves where I'm not controlling myself. But the problem is we have made sex a basic human needs. When you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you look at the more recent renderings of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sex is in the basic, where it's food, security, shelter, and homeostasis, the normal function of body. And then they have added sex. The moment that thing was put there, that sex became a basic need of a human being. Moya alituambia, Moya said at one time, hautakufa. Because guys were like, this thing about this, they need condoms. Like, guys, if you don't stay without sex, you will not die. Yeah. But we've made it almost impossible for somebody to live without sex in our heads and also in the culture that has been pushed. So we need to have a conference with our children, if we care watoto, and just tell them, listen, guys, we've messed it. In fact, there's a story that I'm dealing with, a conversation that I'm dealing with, where there's a father whose one son has gone mayhem and done so many crazy things. And the way we were saying that the pastor come with anointing oil and what and what. And one guy just said, one pastor just said, this guy needs to just call his children and apologize. Kneel in front of them and say, my children, I am sorry. I have modeled the wrong thing to you. I have caused you to take a journey that you should not have taken because of how either I lived my life or how I treated your mother or how I exposed you to certain things. And he was saying, that is all. We don't need to pray for these kids. This guy just needs to own up to his drama and tell his children, please, don't follow my footsteps, change your ways. Those kids will find healing. But up to now, they are acting up based on the drama that they have seen from the father. How many of us are in that place where we are? And unfortunately, now it has been made corporate because now the whole world has ganged up together against the next generation. I call it the rape of a generation.
So we have what we are. Yeah. So what we are seeing, what you're saying is that what we are seeing is the results of us allowing a whole generation, and I guess also raping them ourselves, because we have been part of it.
Many kids have been exposed
by
respected adults. I was just looking at the document you sent that you are going to distribute to the other guys. And those are the stories. There's always an elder cousin, an elder uncle, an elder auntie who took them into that path and exposed them to something that their lives will never get out of.
Yeah, and then, but the one thing that document, because of course it is a biased document, it is very subjective, if I may call it that. It does not offer hope or offer solutions, right?
It offers refuge.
It offers
refuge.
Refuge, yes.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, how then do we become the refuge that those young people need while they figure themselves out? Because you see, a lot of it starts from, I'm questioning. Mark gave a very good, breakdown of the LGBTQ, and
Yes.
Q is queer stroke questioning. So when a kid is questioning and they experiment, how do we then make our spaces the refuge? So that, I mean, many of those comments, and yes, it's a long document, so once we share, you will look at what the kids were going through.
Yeah.
Many were saying, I ended up finding a place where I belonged. I ended up being accepted. I went online and I met a community that accepted me as I am. I went and I found somebody who's behaving like me. A lot of it is a place to belong. Why is it that our homes, and Mark, I think you can answer this one probably because you've dealt with young people. Why is it that our homes are not a place to belong? Why is it that our homes are a place to lie down, watch TV, have your school fees paid for, but not belong?
It's basically boarding and lodging.
Yeah.
I think the biggest struggle I've seen is we have not dealt, like what you were saying, dealing with ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, there's no way you can preach water and drink wine and expect anything different. Like, for example, you can't tell your child not to drink and there's alcohol available in the house.
Mm-hmm.
There's that part. Then two, accepting that this is where we are at. There's that part of accepting that we ni kubaya na this is the situation we are in.
Yeah.
Whether we like it or not, our kids are going through what they are going through. We opened the door and it's not Nani only came in. They came with brothers and sisters and cousins.
Yeah.
I might have lived a very maybe frivolous life in terms of partying and being known, having a few panguacandos here and there, but not knowing that that door opened someone else to enter, kama tuoni,
Without
and
a
now
saying.
yes, now that they're inside the house, we have to accept waliingia na wanaishi huku.
Yeah.
So it's now, I think you can help me with the process of of dealing with something. Ile denial, 5 steps.
Denial, anger.
Yes. That we need to go through that process for ourselves, so that by the time we're getting to acceptance, now we can ask for help in terms of how do I deal with this? How do I see my child as my child and separate the struggle they have from who they are, and be able to love them through it and help them through it, instead of just not knowing what to do and freezing and maybe making them feel rejected more than being loved or finding refuge. Like my hope, my hope is that we can get to a place where they will run to us first than to any other person.
Yeah.
In terms of when you're saying being open and starting this conversation is creating that safe environment where a child can actually come and say, hey, by the way, this has happened to me. Or when this happens to you, what does it mean? You see, when a child is questioning or wondering about something, it does not mean they're gay. You see, the problem is that immediately a child comes and tells you, hey, I think I have had a certain experience, so this has happened. We conclude it. We're like, oh God. And we move on to conclusion. Instead of hearing and processing what it is in a safe environment.
Yeah.
I think Let me use your example, Pastor Shalom. Pastor Shalom. But
My
the
name is
quarters
Shalom.
you're known as pastor.
My
I
name
think
is Shalom, yes.
because I've been a pastor to your daughter since she was like 9.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Thereabout, and now she has finished high school. I think one of the things that helped the journey was that she could come to you with anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it made it easy for me to have certain conversations, knowing your stand and knowing that I am affirming things you've already said. You have had a conversation. Or if I was introducing anything new, I knew I wouldn't be crossing the line in terms of that conversation. And I remember one of the biggest conversations I had with her was when she now started developing very female. She was growing into a girl.
They're called
And
calves. They're called
yes,
calves, and she was born with those calves. They just manifested later.
they got accentuated. You know, calves is where accidents happen. Like,
yeah, calves is where calves cause accidents. Yes.
in that point, I was like, "Why? Does this girl understand what is happening? We need to have a conversation and sit her down and understand. This is what men are seeing. This is how boys will respond to you.
But if I may interrupt you, because you're bringing up something that may not quite be very clear to the people listening.
Yeah.
You're talking about something that I talk about in the book, Eggs, Hammers, and Chili Peppers.
Yes.
About creating a village. So for the sake of those listening, I'm a big believer in the fact that you do not have to feel the pressure of bringing up your child alone. So even when I'm busy, having these conversations out in public, I have allowed other people into my life, into my children's lives, so that they can hear good sense from somebody else. Yeah. So much as we are asking, we are challenging parents here and saying, how are you going to talk about this with your child? I knew that there's some information that I may want to share with my daughter, and I'll only be accepted as saying that just because I am the mom. All right. So by having somebody like Mark, who's part of the village, who's part of the people who are talking to her, if you have somebody, I believe that you don't have to have village having same gender. You can have somebody of a different gender. So for me, what the story that Mark is telling you, because he's giving you an insider story without a background, is that he needed to speak to her and explain to her, this is what guys see. You see, if I tell her this is what guys see, I'm not a guy, so how do I know? But if another man tells her, this is what boys see, this is what guys see, and this person is safe, is, virtuous character, somebody that you trust, you can be able to guide your children that way. The same with the boy child. Yeah. If you are speaking to a boy child, and if you have a boy child, and you want to tell them the effect they have on women, it's always better to have another woman in their village who will be able to tell them, hey, young man, this is what's going down, and this is how girls feel. Because yes, he will believe his dad because his dad has done it, but he'll believe it from the angle of, this is what men do. But a woman can be able to explain to this boy child that this is what women feel when you do ABCD.
Yeah.
So I feel as though the one thing we don't speak enough about is forming this village around our children who can be able to communicate the same thing that we want to communicate, and of course in a more acceptable way. I have been able to talk to Ewagata's boys. They're a little older, so I've been able to speak to them when running the ropes classes and things like that, and when interacting with them during class. And there's information I was able to pass on to them because I'm female. Which is totally different from a guy coming and telling them this is what needs to be done. So yes, that is why you succeeded in what you are doing, because you are a different angle of the same story in the village that I built around my daughter.
I like what you're sharing, and I think this is a very helpful thing for many of our guys who are listening to us. I almost said viewers, listeners, because Kenny kama niko kwa TV. But the truth is, building that village is a critical component. Some of us have built it by just the fact that we've grown up in church. Some of us have built it by being very intentional in choosing who we hang out with and where our kids go. Some of us, our kids are ragtag armies out there on their own. But by God's grace, he creates a village. The guys who literally poured a lot into my life had no relation to my parents. I just walked into a church in Isli somewhere, in the middle of Isli, and found a community. And those are the guys who helped me grow.
And that's exactly, did you have not used words that are very different from what is being used as far as LGBTQ is concerned. I walked into a place and I found a community.
Yes. But this community had a standard. The thing that is easy for our young people is that there are very strong communities that are bent on using what is a weakness to them to their advantage.
Yeah.
That is, and if you look at that document again, people will talk about, then I was connected to a website, or then I was connected to a group of people who accepted me as I am. When you check very well, it's an NGO that is funded to the tune of millions to push LGBTQ. And so what happens? Your kid finds solace in the wrong company. Let me tell you, even in church, let me tell you this, even in church, when I walked into this church, the same community I'm talking about, there was a number of groups. There was the cool kids, there was kanisa, there was a group of players, like serious hardcore players.
Yeah. Believe it or not, Ewagata.
Yes.
There is a song we used to sing when we were kids that if you want a nice girl, you go find her in church. So there was a time there was a whole group of guys who were brought up knowing that if you want a good girl, go find her in church. So of course there have to be players in church.
Yes, but this was our deep state. They were actually very involved in church as well, which was very interesting. We actually ousted them from leadership. We had to do a coup and get them out of leadership. They were leadership. Okay?
Yeah.
So within that community, when I got saved, I could have walked into things I didn't even do as an unsaved child within that community. And
Is it me or him?
Okay, I think it's him. I was hoping it was not on my end.
Can you hear me?
You froze, Ewagata.
Oh, I can hear you guys clearly discussing me. Is it me or?
Yeah, you're
okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
He's still frozen.
Yeah.
It is raining,
okay.
So maybe that could be one of the things affecting.
So intentional about it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Not yet, Kabisa.
Okay.
Just mute your video for a second so that maybe connection.
But anyway, in the meantime, while Ewagata is getting back, we can probably, even the time is running out, imagine. I mean, we always run out of time. But time is running out before we have even finished and said, what does one do? But I'd say, number one, build a village. Secondly, make your home comfortable. But there's somebody who asked, one of the people who are listening in, asked, are we even home? In these places where we want our children to feel at home, are we even home? That was one. Secondly, is home a building or is it a presence?
Yeah. Hey, let me tell you, this thing is, I feel like it touches my heart because of the impact of home to a child.
Yeah.
Because home is where you find your sense of belonging.
Yes, in fact, so belonging needs to be within a human context.
Yes.
Yes.
It might not be the house is fantastic or you have money or everything, but that essence of my family is the place that I belong.
Yeah.
That is where my default is. When everything goes wrong in my life, I can count on home. And that's why fixing home is paramount. In fact, don't even try and think about the issues that we have talked all these 3 weeks. If we could just fix home for the kid, we would have done 50% of the work, I believe.
So we are saying that the fight for identity is about fixing home.
Yes.
That is how to win. Okay.
Yeah, because we draw our self-identity and self-assurance and security from home. When we are loved from home and when we are safe, we feel safe from home. And that also means fixing home also means not allowing a lot of relatives sleeping over.
Yeah.
And I know it's a sensitive issue because we are in an African context. And I've seen people, you're demanded of. If someone is getting of age, they're looking for work, they need to come in.
Yeah.
Live at your place until they find work, you know. And in the same spaces where you're raising your children. So being sensitive about who is in your house. If it's a house help you're hiring, guy, like do your extra work to figure out who is this person who's coming into my house. How are they relating to my children? Because you will hear so many stories of boys being introduced to stuff.
Yeah, like for me, one of the things I did was invest in the person who's going to be home with my children.
Oh yeah, and now I understand why.
You understand why?
It's finally clicked.
Yeah, I mean, because I knew the direction life was going, and I guess it had to do with being already on this journey. You know, whenever I'd speak like to kids or families and interact with people, the one thing I decided to do, let me tell you, it's better that everything else goes wrong, but the home front, my kids have consistency. And the one thing I did was invest in that person to be able to stay with them as long as I possibly could. So, you know, when people are doing long service awards kind of thing in companies, I will do that in my house because of who he is now to my kids. But you see, now it has taken work, it's taken consistency, it's taken, what is it called? Investing in a relationship that can last years. I'm seeing a friend of mine here who's watching, and I know she's done the same in her home. You know, she's got this person who has been with her kids from the get-go, you know, has literally brought up all her children. We take some of those things for granted, but it's one of the ways that we can actually save our children from, because you can't do, I want us to understand that we can't do anything about the onslaught that the world is hitting at us. Ewagata was mentioning that the budgets behind some of these things are high, and you'll never be able to match that. You won't be able to ban Netflix from your house. You know, it can only last so long. You can ban it for a 5-year-old. You can't ban it for a 15-year-old. But as you're making this place as home and deciding who are the people who are going to be around your child, invest even in that house help as much as possible. And yes, granted, there are those who will be trouble enough and will have to walk away. But what I'm saying is do your part to stay as long as possible for the sake of your children, at least up until they grow to a certain stage. Because you need as many people sharing similar values to you, similar values with you, to your children. Because the other way I have used that particular network for me is that when I have something to say to them and I know they're not interested in hearing it from me, I pass it on through the house help. Have a conversation with them. I know they will listen to him. And so, you know, he will go and give the same message. So that's what I think I would like us to look at this as opposed to worrying about LGBTQ. Is my child gonna be gay or not? Number one, first and foremost, create the foundation where even if they end up being there, they can come and find their grounding. Then there is hope, because somewhere, I don't remember exactly where, but in the Bible, when Paul is talking about I think to the Corinthians or somebody, talking about their redemption, he basically said, you people who are formerly living in sin, you are formerly doing this, you are formerly adulterous, you are formerly. What that means is that everybody has hope to change, everybody has hope to make a difference. So it's, my appeal is really that we look at our kids from the point of view of, just because this is the world they're living in, does not mean they have to be of that world. And if for whatever reason, your son, your daughter comes and says, Mom, I think I'm lesbian, I'm gay, I think I am, because intersex is biological, they basically do not come and tell you they are, because that one needs biological evidence. They say, I am asexual, I'm totally uninterested. Have the conversation with them. There's one girl, by the way, now that I've talked about asexual, who had been brought up basically to focus on her education, right? And so she wasn't interested in boys, but it's not like she wasn't disinterested. And when she was about 12, her friends started calling her asexual. And I remember, again, because, you know, well, this is Shalom, I have these conversations a lot with kids. This kid comes and asks me, what does asexual mean? Because I am being called that by my friends. And it is by understanding it that she realized they will call her something, they will label her values something, because those are the labels they understand. So if I like to wear trousers, if I like to do my hair a certain way, if I like to do, you know, whatever it is, then I need to understand why I'm doing it, and I need to get the kids to understand why they're doing it. So by the time somebody's calling them another label, they have already called themselves their own label. That's one of the ways I feel we shall fight for their identity. All right. So I think, yes, as we are walking this journey, dear parents, dear aunties, uncles, whoever you are, you know, representing here, what I would say is build the village. What else would I say? So build the village, make your home safe for these kids to be in. Understand, and Ewagata is back. I don't know whether he'll be able to continue saying. He was talking about the people that they had to hound out, the deep state that they had to hound out of church. And we're talking about even in church, there's communities who are ready to groom our children another direction. It's for us to leave this conversation knowing, so what am I going to do with what I have, and how am I going to support my kids? And even if they come and tell me they have a different orientation, how do I support them? So Wagata, I think you can, finalize what you were talking about.
Sorry about that. The telcos decided I'm not going to talk.
No worries.
But I'm back.
Even your volume is better now.
It's better now. I restarted the phone. It just conked out. Restarted everything. So basically what I was saying is, yes, within even that small community, there will be you will find the groups, those who will want to dissuade those. And I know you've experienced this as youth pastors and people who have worked with kids. There's always that gang that the moment you stand up and say, I'm doing the right thing, they are ready to fight tooth and nail to get you in the wrong direction. Number two, be intentional about building that community. As I said, for mine, it was just by default and by God's grace that I landed in the right community. But be intentional. Let us gather together and think, how do we salvage? Already we know there are places we've dropped the ball. How can we then take the responsibility to salvage this generation? Number three, building a little heaven in a corner won't help you. Because this is the quickest thing to do. Let us move and build. Let us buy land in Emali, away from East Madogodhani of Nairobi, and build our homes there. You know, Mimi, Mark, Shalom. Just pick those guys who we know we share the same interest, and let's move away from this drama. And it will not help, because it's either we do something to change everything, or everything will spill to our houses. Let me give you the typical example. The Kenyan thing of I sweep my house and pour the dust and the dirt on the street outside my house. What happens is the next time somebody is passing, they see 3 paper bags and they decide, oh, this is a dump yard. And they throw a banana peel. Another person comes and sees, oh, there's papers and there's a banana peel. They pour a little bucket of their trash. Before you know it, your fence and the trash is at the same level. Guys can walk into your house. Why? Because you decided, I will clean my house and let everyone sort their kid out there. Let everyone sort their family out there. Your kid is not going to relate with you alone. They're not going to relate with that little cocoon alone. They will end up in a school. They will end up in a university. They will meet with my kids. And so help you God that I did a good job with my kids. So we cannot take it in and make it our little heaven here. And that is what the LGBTQ has done. They have decided we will not just hide in our cocoons and say, oh guys, come, this is the number, find us, call this number, and then this number will give you another number that will give you another number. If we know you are safe, we are safe with you, we will get you in. They have gone to the headlines, they have gone to the movies, they have gone to the sitcoms, they have gone to the internet, they have gone to the parliament, they have gone to policy making, because they know that if they don't change everyone, they will lose everyone. We need to take that battle in that direction. Okay, it's not a battle. We need to redeem. We need to take redemption in that direction. We cannot do it just from the pulpit. We have to go to the office. We have to go to the classroom. We have to go to the policy makers. We have to go to law and advocate for this, because we cannot fight this battle retreating. And that's what we have done. And now,
just to clarify, what would we be advocating for?
Advocate for values to be taught. Right now, the other day,
values to be taught. Okay.
Yes, for the other day when this what was it? This curriculum called comprehensive sex education curriculum came up, because it was very overt. We were able to gang up and say no. But then we only react. These guys sit down and think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, what will it look like? What do we need to put on TV now so that 15 years from now you will be okay with hearing a boy say, I am gay, and nobody feels anything? Unless we become as wise as serpent and innocent as doves, we are losing, and already we are seeing it. Because when you hear this conversation and the jitters in this conversation, it's because we've already missed out on a huge impact that we could have had because we pulled back. So that is my plea to us. That's my prayer for us, that we rally together to be able to redeem this generation. Because at the end of the day, we will have to settle down in our old age and see them run what we are running now.
I think what I like about what you're saying is with the community or the village, there's also like creating a village for your child, but also becoming a village for another child. Yes, in terms of sometimes we worry about our own. We don't worry about the next door neighbor. What is going on there? Because if your child is coming out to play in the estate or wherever, who are they playing with? It's basically but that thing that you're talking about. You said what? Building what in the corner?
Heaven, a little heaven in the corner.
Yes, we want to build our cocoon.
It has become our daily behavior that even we don't want to know our next door neighbor. We don't interact. Tunaonanga kwa parking, tukipita habari kila mtu ameenda kwake. And because of that, it boils down to you're trying to just feed your own, take care of your own, not knowing that the influences that are coming to your child are from your neighborhood. So if we all come out and do something about our neighborhood and take care of each other, we would actually be doing something about our society. And eventually, if we be intentional and get to the level that you're talking about of being part of policy and being part of what is happening and being aware, it could help. I remember seeing I was arguing with some people on Twitter about the new proposal. I don't know if you guys had seen the new proposal bill for what is it called? Reproduction. Like it was about abortion.
Reproductive health bill.
And when I read it, I actually was shocked to discover the red flag they were using to make people not see what the actually agenda was, is the abortion conversation. But underneath, what they were creating was, because getting married as a gay person or in Kenya is illegal, they were looking for a way where you can legally have a child with someone, and you can parent them, you can adopt them and parent them, as long as you are a gay couple. Like if you are living as two gay people, you can have a child with someone, and you can legally adopt them and live with them. That was like the underlying thing they were trying to pass. And because when I read it, I was like, shucks. And I even stopped arguing with these guys about the abortion thing. And I was like, do you guys see the agenda here? And it hit me so hard because we never read these things.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. Yeah. We, and that's how come we are being caught by surprise.
We are reactionary.
Because exactly, that's what we are. We are reactionary. Nobody ever thinks that something is going to happen in their life or amongst their children until it actually happens.
Yes.
I was laughing today with a young friend of mine who's recently gotten a baby. And when we were having, it's after I shared the poster for this particular meeting, and she was saying she never thought the day would come when she actually looked at her child, looked at the poster and thought, where is this newborn going into? Which world is this newborn getting into? You get, and the thing is, the information is there, but we are not enough of us who are looking at it or looking for it. Yeah. There's a book I've shared, I've just written on the comments, looking for a book called Recreate. I've managed to grab it. You have this book?
Yes, I have it.
This book was written in 2008.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember my daughter I got it then, and I remember my daughter was about 6 years old at that time. And after I read it, it's not even after finishing the book, it's after beginning to read the book, it hit me, oh my goodness. And at that time, she was growing up with Hannah Montana, if I can give that as an example. And Hannah Montana was a nice girl. And I remember telling them, guys, if God keeps us alive long enough, you wait and see who Hannah Montana is going to become. By the time she became Miley Cyrus, hanging on that wrecking ball.
Hey, Prophet Shalom.
I'm sorry, not prophet. The thing is, the resources are there. The resources are there. Yes. So by the time I'm saying build a village, start now, start from where you are, just do what it takes to fight for the next generation.
Yeah.
Is that it's there. Instead of being reactionary, do something about it beforehand. Right now, yes, we may be reacting, but even if you're starting to react now, when I was saying at the beginning, let's draw this map, your story has not ended. You need to choose, how is your story going to continue? Then you need to also teach this to your kids. Why? So that they can know at each juncture, what choices are they making? The next young person, I'm talking about this friend of mine who's recently gotten a baby. If we had not started having these conversations earlier, her child would suffer for not knowing. You get the generations we are saying that, we're saying, Wakata was saying we go down on our knees and apologize to this generation that we have messed up. Can you imagine what that gay couple is going to do to the child that they will be allowed to adopt? Because it's just in Kenya that they were not allowed. Yeah. And probably Africa is just lagging behind. But as we go on, there are reports and documents that show the economic case of accepting this agenda. Because it makes business sense to have some of these people.
Yeah.
Because the minute you get me fighting against the humanness in that person and adding sexuality as part of the story, then you demonize me. But as long as I want to look at this person as a human being, and let's talk about sexuality as a separate story, then we will get a certain direction. And I think that's where the critical thinking comes in, where now we are teaching our children, think about these things.
Yeah.
It's a tough conversation.
Yeah, it's a tough conversation, but not an impossible one. Now,
Ron Luce says, Ron Luce's premise in that book is building a culture within your home that is stronger than the culture that is attacking, that is out to destroy your children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
So for me, I couldn't do anything about my daughter's calves, but I could do something about the people who are speaking into calves causing accidents. You know, that kind of thing is basically look and see, how do I support my child through this process? Because yes, there is a culture that is out to deceive them. And the idea is build a business case for your family to stand. Build an proper economic, build an eternal case for your family to stand, right? And because these conversations will never end, we're already 1/4 past the hour that we were supposed to have finished. I think maybe I can just give an opportunity for you guys to give your closing remarks, hard stop. But what we'll be doing is now looking deeper into pornography and pedophilia. And one of the things that I have found, and not just pedophilia, it's pornography, you know, and other perversions. I found a group, there's a support group for some people who are virtuous pedophiles. Virtuous pedophiles. Okay, we'll be talking about this next week. But what I'm trying to say is, when we look at the evolution of sex, this culture that is deceiving our children, let us understand that the language, symbols, familiar things are being taken and convoluted to end up meaning something else. So virtuous pedophiles are actually pedophiles who do not want to touch a child. They're interested, they're attracted, but they're not following through. So here is the argument. If as a heterosexual, you're not raping somebody, then as a pedophile, and I'm not doing it, I could still be a virgin.
Virtuous.
Virtuous.
So they are virtuous rapists.
No, they're not rapists because they haven't raped anybody. They're pedophiles because they're interested. They're attracted to children sexually. So what I'm trying to say is, right now, I think, Mark, you have the youngest child out of the three of us. Who's how old? 2, 3 years old?
All 2.5 years.
Yeah, she's going to grow up and go to a school where she has a teacher who's a virtuous pedophile. He likes children. You know, he's attracted to them, but he'll not touch them.
Yeah.
The more we allow, the more, because you can't stop the world from getting there. What can you do to buffer your child to get there? And those are some of the things we'll be getting into next week as we finish, because of course, all good things must come to an end. I will say those are my closing remarks. I'll give Ewagata and Mark an opportunity. I think Ewagata go first, and then Mark, then you can close with us. We agreed you're the one praying. You're our prayer guy here.
Your prayers had better work.
So yes, Ewagata, go ahead and close.
Unless there's someone who's not in agreement, that's how they work.
Let me just say, we need to step up. We need to step up. I think hearing what we are hearing now and looking at what is happening around us, we need to step up. And number two, we need to be ready to say sorry where sorry needs to be said. And because that is the journey of genuineness. I think many times our children see us as invincible. We have never fallen, we have never lied, we have never eaten sugar from our jar. And so when they make their mistakes, they have never had an apology, they have never had a conversation that takes us to a place where they can ask us, so how did you struggle with this and this, and how are you facing this and this? So be willing, let's humble ourselves to apologize, but let's battle for our children. Rally anybody of a good heart to be able to fight for these young guys. We have a very short window. And I say this because, like Shalom says, Hannah Montana morphs right in front of our eyes.
Yeah.
A lot of things have morphed right in front of our eyes. But because we feel like either we are helpless or we do not want to address ourselves to the fact that something is changing, and it's not changing naturally. It is it's a calculated change. Then it means we also need to be very intentional, calculate that change. Ron Lewis says, you know what, create a culture within your home that is stronger than the culture that is trying to destroy your children. Be that intentional. That's what I would say. Out of all this conversation, be intentional.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for that. I guess mine is to reiterate about, the issue about us creating our homes, like being aware and starting to do something for our home to be a safe haven, and for our home to be a place where love is found and belonging is found in such that these kids can find hope within home first before anywhere else. Before they find that accepting community out there, let it be harder for them to accept any stranger than ourselves. And then Proverbs 22:6 that says, it's a common scripture that we normally talk about when we are doing parenting conversations, that train up a child in the way they should go, and when he or she is old, they will not depart from it. What I normally focus on is train. I think we forget that word train. And imagine someone, you've signed up to the gym, and you want to start training yourself to become fitter, or even become better looking, or anything like that, lose some kilos here and there. That rigorous training that you will be gotten into is not the rigorous training that we actually get our kids into. And we never view parenting as a training where we are intentional in making time and picking out, today I want you to begin to understand this and learn this, and begin that rigorous training for our kids. I guess we stop. One of the things I realized is that with the parenting material out there, we normally are told how to discipline until the age that now kiboko aiongei tena. Now it's you need a different tactic, and it's very hard for us to switch to training mode, where you become if you remember Karate Kid, we take on that mode of sensei and or master or teacher, and begin to teach our kids and train our kids into what we envision for ourselves. The Chinese culture is very good at it, and they get the results they need because of knowing how to train. So my prayer for us in terms of knowing how to train our kids, I pray that God can give us the resources, the wisdom, the ability in every way to know how to train our children to become what we need what God really wants them to become, so that when they are old, they can't depart from it. Yeah. And with those words, can I pray?
Yes.
Yeah, I was taught that by the people who discipled me, that if we don't have a scripture, hakuna kitu tulikuwa tunasema. So I hope they trained me well. Anyway, let us pray. Lord, we are grateful for this conversation. Hard, though it is one of we are living in the times that is the hardest to live in. We ask for your grace to abound. Lord, your word says in Romans that when sin abounds, your grace abounds more. We ask for your grace. We ask for your grace to help us parent our children, help us create a safe haven for our kids, help us love our children, help us draw our children to you more than to anything. We ask that God, you may give us the resources and wisdom and ideas and everything that we need to become a better parent from today onwards. We pray that even as Wagata has talked about, us taking the restoration process out there, being involved in different stages and places of policy making, or as a people and as a church, I pray that God, you may help us to gather that wisdom, gather that courage, and gather that understanding that if we don't deal with our neighborhood, if we don't deal with our estate, if we don't deal with our community, we will not be able to win this war in our houses alone. We need to win this war at the highest level possible. So we thank you for allowing us to be in this process. Thank you for Pastor Shalom, who's been adamant and has invited and has prepared for us this space. We pray that God may continue to bless her and increase her in every way. We thank you and we bless you in Jesus' name, I pray.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. God bless you guys.
All right. So next week, as we close, I'll also be sharing, like what next? Now, what do you do with all of this information? Because yes, we have been having these conversations, but so what? What does it look like for you? What does it look like for your kids and your family as we move on from here? So thanks. It's been great having you on. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Asante. Thank you. God bless.
Karibuni. So the email is coming soon. The email is coming as soon as this is done.
Asante sana.
Karibu.